Hello and welcome to Technocare Industries SAP Geek. This is Anurag and today we are going to learn configuration for automatic business partner generation for employees in HR module. So business partners are basically required for employee vendor posting or employee customer posting. There are scenarios where your SD module or FI module would require to post transactions to employees. In this scenario, employees should also be created as vendors and customers in SAP. But as and when an employee is hired in HR system, this process should happen automatically. In S4HANA, we have a concept of business partners for which then roles are assigned, either vendor role or customer role or both. This business partner generation has to happen automatically in background whenever there is a new employee hired in system or in case of any data updates such as bank details, address information, name of employee. So for this, SAP has released a standard method for generating or synchronizing business partners for HR employees. So in today's video we are going to cover the system prerequisites, configuration checks and master data requirements, which are absolutely important for generating business partners automatically in background for HR employees. So the very first prerequisite is S4HANA release should be at minimum 2020 level. Okay, we have to then activate business function SHCM EEBP1 in SFW5, and we have to get the employee role created in MM for business partner settings and assign a particular number range to the system. Then we will be seeing configurations such as switches in T77S0. We'll be seeing what all steps are required for BP rules, address types, identification types, reconciliation accounts which are required for FI role. This is required only in case employee is needed as a vendor, where you have to post certain entries, financial entries to those vendors. And also there is a config where we can default the vendor data employees to role. So for example, we create a business partner, employee business partner, and we need to default certain roles to it. Like for example, we might have a vendor role, we might have a separate customer role assigned to a particular business partner. So as many roles that we want to have assigned to our business partner, that we can have in standard configuration. Then we'll be seeing certain steps that are required to be done at the client level, because these are master data steps that would be client specific. So employee needs to be hired in system. We need to create reference business partners for each company code with all the required roles, and then we need to assign the reference business partners in the customizing table. Then after that, once all these things are done, we need to schedule the jobs in background, so that whenever there is a delta change in the data of HR employees, whether it may be a new hire employee or change in the existing employee master data, it should be reflected or synchronized with the business partner data. So these are some roles which will be scheduled in background and run daily, or based on whatever frequency we want to synchronize both data in present in HR master as well as business partners. So let us move on to the first step, which are nothing but prerequisites that are required for setting up automatic generation of business partners. So what is the most important prerequisite is, we should be, if we are in a on-premise landscape, the minimum version that we should be on, that is S/4HANA 2020 and onwards. So whatever versions would go afterwards, after this release, including this release, would have this functionality enabled. So if you are before this, if your system is before or older than this release, we might not have this particular switch present in system. The switch is this one, /HCM /EEBP_1. This is nothing but a business function. And if you are in the SAP cloud landscape, okay, so for SAP cloud landscape, all these highlighted versions, so like S/4HANA Cloud 2011 2011 onwards, it is available. So why this is 2011? Basically, effective this landscape, SAP changed the nomenclature from YYYY to YYMM. So it is like 2020 11, which is November, so 2021 February 02. So they changed the nomenclature and switched from YYYY to YYMM because they started releasing new updates month-wise. Okay, so these are the minimum prerequisites without which you cannot schedule the automatic generation of business partners, because you will not have the business function activated for assigning the roles. Automatic role assignment to the business partner won't happen without this. Okay, before this also automatic business business partner generation was there, but then they would not have all the required roles assigned to them. So the extension of those business partners to the required roles had to be done separately via some custom background job. Okay, now it has been released in the standard configuration itself. So how it is achieved, let us see in the upcoming part of this video. So the very first thing that we do in system is we go in SFW5 transaction and we get this business function activated. So once this business function is activated, certain programs will be enabled in system, and those programs will then be used for assignment of business partner roles to the employee BPs generated in system. Okay, also one of the system prerequisite is employee role, okay, and generation and the number range. So let's say we want to create a employee with range, let's say ZEMP, okay, and the number range for that is assigned from, let's say 37 times 0 to 47 times 0. So like that has to be done in business partner configuration, and that is not covered in this video. That is something that will have to be done in coordination with your consultant, because they will be setting up number ranges for all the business partners across modules in the landscape. So then let us start with the configuration. So after generating or activating your business partner, so your business function, we come to this view T77S0. So all the switches, 3 switches are required to be activated over here. You can see activate HR integration, that is HRALX HRAC, the value should be X. Then we have employees replicated from HR system, which is on, HRALX PBPHR, and then we have integration employee BP activated, which is also on, HRALX PB on. So these switches value should be X on and on, so that we can run background jobs for synchronizing data in the employee master and the business partner masters that are generated in background. So this is the very first step of configuration. The second step is basically for checking whether these particular BP roles, address types and identification types are present in system or not. Okay, so this is nothing that we have to create additionally in the system, but sometimes if the standard entries are missing, then you'll have to create them or add them in those tables. So where to do this? The path for SPRO is given here in under personal management in S4 SAP S4 HANA UN resources. We have synchronization for business partners for SAP HCM employee role. So we have a detailed documentation of this. Inside this, you just need to click on this link, define BP role, and we need to check whether these three entries are there. We need to have BUP 003, we need to have BBP 005, and we need to have PBP 010. If all these entries are present in this table, then we don't need to do anything, but if any of this is missing, we need to add it. Similarly, we also have to check whether this standard role is present, FLVN 00 and FLVN 01. Okay, along with this, whatever roles that we need, that even if that is a customer role starting with Z, or customer vendor role starting with ZFL, so that also can be assigned automatically to the business partners, provided they are present in defined BP role. Okay, then we need to make sure that under define address types, we need to have this HCM 001 present. So this will be synchronized, this will be used for synchronization of Infotype 6 address, permanent address, to your business partner. Similarly to this BP roles, if this entry does not exist, we need to add it. If it exists, we need to leave it as it is and move on. Then in the define identification types, we need to go to employee ID. We need to check whether HCM 001, HCM 028, HCM 030 and HCM 031 is present. So these are nothing but your employee IDs, internal personal number, service performer, and personal number, freelancer. All these things are used as identification types in the business partner identification tab. If these entries are not there, we need to add in the table. If they are already present, no action is required. After verifying the BP roles, added types and identification types, we will move on to the next set of configuration, which is required for employee as a vendor or customer. When employee has to be treated as a vendor or customer, its corresponding business partner must have a reconciliation account attached to it. So we have a SPRO node in the same path. So in this path, you'll get define BP roles, define address types, define identification types, and later on you'll find reconciliation of accounts and default vendor data. Okay, so reconciliation account for employees in Role FI Supplier. Here we give company code wise whatever reconciliation account is created by FI, that should be used for reconciliation while posting data to employee vendors, okay, or employee customers. Again, the final step is to define the default vendor data for employees in Role FI Supplier. So here we have a customizing table basically, where we give company code wise entries. So when we create two entries, all the remaining columns should be kept as default. Okay, when you create new entries over here and give corresponding entries for different company codes which are present in our landscape, whatever default values come over here, we just need to save the entries as it is. Later on, at a client specific version of this table, we will go and update this reference business partners, but that is a later step. That would not be coming under configuration. That would be a one-time client specific step that we'll be doing. Okay, now the next step is to ensure that master data, complete master data is present, which is required for business partner generation. So first thing is that we need to make sure that employees are hired in system, HR system. Now there are two ways to hire employees in HR system, whether they are replicated from SuccessFactors or they are hired using manual transactions PA 40 or 30. Okay, once they are hired, the minimum HR master that has to be present is Infotype 0, 1, 2, 6 and 9. which is actions. Your hiring action should be present, your organization assignment should be present, your personal data should be present, your address information, main permanent address should be present in 6, and main bank information, bank details should be present. So these 6 and 9s are used basically for vendor or customer role that are assigned to business partners, and the rest of the things are used for business partner synchronization, like address, your name, and whether employee is active or not, these things. And this was the master data which is required from HR side. Now let us move on to the master data which is required in business partner in MM for business partner generation. So before we can schedule jobs which will automatically synchronize data in HR and business partners, first we need to create a reference business partner for each company code. Okay, so this is a client specific activity once all these previous steps are done. So whatever steps are mentioned basically in this video from the start, we need to make sure that we do it in that particular sequence only. Okay, so all considering that all those configurations are done, now I will come here and we will create a reference business partner for each company code. So we'll go to transaction BP, we'll select this person and we'll hit create button. When we hit create button, we'll name this business partner as reference employee vendor for that particular company code and save the business partner with the general role. Once this business partner is generated, a particular ID will be generated with the internal number range. After this ID is generated, your business partner will be available, and then we need to press edit and add as many business roles, BP roles we need to it. Like for example, we might need only one role for employee as a vendor, so FI vendor. Okay, it may be a standard role or customer role or customer specific role from here. Okay, or we may have two roles, one for FI vendor, one for customer, or any other role. So let's say we there is a requirement for employee business partners to be assigned to 4 different roles. So this reference business partner will be assigned to 4 different roles in this. Okay, and we will be saving the corresponding data. Here I have shown if we save employee as a vendor role, so system will ask for the company code, right, and the reconciliation account. So we will give those information whatever are required in those particular roles, and then we will save the business partner. And we need to do this for every company code. So let's say our requirement is to have 4 different roles for every business partner generated in system for individual employee. We need to do that activity for all the company codes available. Let's say in our example we have only 2 company codes, so we'll create 2 reference business partners, and then when the background jobs will run, it will check the reference business partners. Whatever roles are assigned to that, the same will be assigned to the whatever employee vendors or employee business partners are generated in background. Okay, so this is a very important step, creation of reference business partner for each company code. And this reference business partners has to be created very carefully, because whatever will be created for them will be replicated across all the business partners generated for employees. The next step is assignment of this reference business partners in the customizing. So this is nothing but the same table that we had configured earlier. So let me come back to the configuration step. Yeah, this is that default vendor data of employees in a Role FI Supplier. This configuration will move on to the test client, and at client level we need to update the reference business partners against its company code. So we need to make sure that all the remaining columns are blank. Okay, so they will have default values, like for example subtype 0 will be considered if nothing is mentioned over here, that is main bank subtype will be considered for bank detail synchronization. Similarly, permanent address will be considered for address information in business partners. So what we need to do is we just need to edit this business partner field company code specific. So we just need to ensure that one thing we need to keep in mind is the business partners are client specific. So this table, this configuration table, has to be updated with the reference BUPA created in respective clients. For example, if we move this configuration to quality and production, they are different environments, and if we generate reference partners, business partners in this step, okay, in respect to quality and production systems with internal number range, it is possible that the reference business partners are generated with different numbers or IDs. So those IDs which are applicable in that particular client has to be updated in this customizing table. So for making this field, a particular field, editable, SAP has also released a note which we can find easily on SAP support portal by searching this table as table name as the keyword. Okay, what that will enable is basically when we run that, Webden Pro application will be called for updating only this field, reference business partners, and only this field will be editable in this entire table. We just maintain those reference business partners and we save the record system. Okay, alternatively you can also do a one-time activity at each client after these changes are moved as a cutover activity, and update client specific reference business partners against employee codes in this customizing table manually from backend. Okay, once this assignment is done, then comes the one-time business partner generation for existing employees. So whenever we are implementing for any company, so there would be certain list of employees which are already present in the organization. For them we need to run one-time job, and then we need to schedule job for delta upload, right? So this is the job which we'll be running for one-time business partner generation for existing employees, right? HCM, RH, SYNC, BUPA, EMPL, SINGLE. So we'll go to a transaction code SA38. In the selection screen we'll give these inputs, okay, and just simply press execute. Once we execute, the job will run in background and you can check the logs in SLG1. You go to SLG1 and see the processing of the BP generation. In case there are any errors, the errors typically would be like number range maintenance or number range assignment, which can be easily resolved by in consulting with your consultant. Okay, once this is generated, once all the business partners are generated for the entire existing employees, okay, then we can schedule this job in background, either daily or whatever frequency we need, for updating the delta data. Okay, so delta data is what? Any new hires coming into system or any changes in the existing employee master data. So that to be updated into the business partners, we will be scheduling this job in background. Okay, now moving on to the role assignment. So there are two jobs which will be running in background or in foreground. There are two jobs. One is this one. This job will be just generating the business partners, and this is the second job, which is actually delivered using the business function that we activated in step 1. This is used for assignment of whatever roles are required to the business partner. So this job basically will take input from the reference business partner that we have generated in the customizing, and then generate and assign those roles to the all business partners generated in the earlier job. Okay, so this program will run one time for all the employees, and all the roles that are required, in our case 4 roles, whatever are required, they will be assigned to all the business partners already generated. And again, for delta data, that is for example new hires or any other data updates, so the role assignment will happen using this job. So once we are in production and this data is this data replication is running properly, there will be 2 jobs which would be updating the data. One is this one, which will be creating business partners, and another one is this one, which will be assigning the roles to the respective business partners. Okay, both the jobs will generate SLG1 logs that can be analyzed for any error debugging. Okay, so that was it for automatic business partner generation for HR employees.